Welcome into Bengals Breakdown. I am your host, Stone Shields. Thanks so much for hanging out with us here on a Sunday. Happy Sunday to you guys. On today's show, we're going to be talking about Colin Cowherd and some comments that he made in regards to the Cincinnati Bengals. Anytime someone nationally like Colin Cowherd speaks on the Bengals, we always think it's a good idea to cover it here on the show as well. Specifically, he was talking about Joe Burrow and his future with this franchise. I really thought they were powerful comments from Cowherd, so I certainly wanted to break them down on today's show and provide my own thoughts and opinions on them as well. As I've said several times here on Bengals Breakdown, look, none of these national media pundits are perfect, right? A lot of them, the reason they were able to get to where they are now is because, they're aggressive opinions, right? They're bold takes. Cowherd certainly has lots of those, but it is my belief that out of all the national media people, Colin Cowherd is the best. He seemingly, to me, is spot on more times than not. Certainly he has his whiffs, has a ton of them, right? But Cowherd is my favorite personally, and I think he really does a great job. And typically when he talks about the Cincinnati Bengals, I tend to agree with the things that he says. We're going to be breaking that down here on today's show. By the way, doing some solo producing here on today's edition of Bengals Breakdown. So if you see me looking down, whatever the case may be, just bear with me as we progress through today's show. But before we get into that, make sure you guys hit that sub button if you have not done so already. We are on the doorsteps here of 17,000 subscribers here at Bengals Breakdown. Our goal is certainly to hit that mark before the end of the month of February, but I think we can do it a little bit earlier on than that. Let's make this a big video. Let's get like 100 subs on this video. That certainly would be awesome. Hit that sub button, youtube.com/Bengals TV. We'll be breaking down the entirety of the Bengals offseason, free agency, NFL draft on the horizon as well. Plenty to talk about, so don't miss out. Hit that sub button right now. Let's dive into these quotes from Colin Cowherd, and then we'll kind of go from here. So this is what Cowherd had to say on the Herd last week. He said, they don't have a real GM. Of course, talking about the Cincinnati Bengals. Eagles have like one of the best, if not the best, and two assistant GMs. Eagles have 21 scouts on their website. We looked. Bengals have 4. So Joe Burrow, to some degree, is trapped. Think about this. I'll say this. I absolutely think at some point he will demand to be traded. I really believe that. It's very hard to miss the playoffs when you have a great quarterback. One team that happened this year, Cincinnati. It's virtually impossible. 40% of the league goes to the playoffs. If you have a great quarterback in a quarterback league, you are going to the playoffs. Obviously, that is some strong comments there from Colin Cowherd, and I think a lot of people around the city of Cincinnati are like, whoa, Joe Burrow, trade requests, and the sirens certainly go off. So we will break down those comments here in a moment. But first, the pinned comment of today's video. What is your concern level with Joe Burrow ever requesting a trade? Certainly not going to request one this offseason, but ever requesting a trade while he is with the Cincinnati Bengals. Let me know in the comment section. Scale it for us 1 to 10. 10 being you're freaking out. 1, you're not worried at all. He's 100% playing the entirety of his career with the Cincinnati Bengals. But if that ad comes here on YouTube, totally fine. Take advantage of it. Get down there and sound off for us. All right, I have plenty of thoughts here on this whole situation with what Colin Cowherd was talking about. First of all, I don't think this is crazy to say, to be completely honest with you. Obviously, if Joe Burrow ever requested a trade, as Bengals fans, we all would be devastated and heartbroken and perhaps even angry as well. Certainly a mix of emotions. But if things continue to trend the way they have this past year, that's not going to bode well for the Cincinnati Bengals. Look, Joe Burrow is one of the most competitive guys on planet Earth. That's just a fact. Obviously, most professional athletes are, but Joe Burrow certainly is at the tippy top of that list. His competitive spirit is very similar to that of Tom Brady, who's arguably the most competitive guy ever behind Michael Jordan, right? There's some people that are just wired differently, and Joe Burrow certainly fits into that category. He's not just going to sit around, right, and continue to play elite football and miss the playoffs. Now, this is kind of a one-year thing, right? 2023 is a bit of an oddball with the injury history, or the injuries that he suffered, I should say. But this 2024 season, the elite level in which he played, and you miss the playoffs, to Cowherd's point, it doesn't happen when you have a quarterback that is playing as well as Joe Burrow played last season. So certainly some area of concern there, no doubt. Also, I think I want to bring up the Carson Palmer angle of this whole situation, right? A lot of people are comparing, Burrow to Carson Palmer. Carson Palmer, obviously, very similar, right? Heisman Trophy winner, number 1 overall pick, kind of came in as the savior of the franchise. Certainly what Joe Burrow seemingly has done for this Bengals organization here in the past couple of years. But what happened? Carson Palmer, several things happened, right? He let good players, the Bengals let good players leave while Palmer was here. Palmer, as the years went on, continued to get more frustrated with the organization, and eventually it culminated with a trade request. Now, that certainly came over time, right? That wasn't something that Carson Palmer just one day decided, I'm going to request a trade. It was lots of events that kind of led up to that if you're talking about Carson Palmer and his time with the Cincinnati Bengals. But I think it is fair to suggest that Joe Burrow potentially could go down that path, especially if the Bengals fumble the offseason, which we will get into that a little bit later here on today's show. We've talked about, right? This is why this is the biggest offseason in Cincinnati Bengals history, because if you take off that guy and you don't bring T. Higgins back, and you don't bring Trey Hendrickson back, that's going to cause a lot of issues going forward, because it's going to create more friction, or it's going to create the beginning of friction between Cincinnati as an organization and their quarterback in Joe Burrow. I do think the kicker to this situation is Ja'Marr Chase, right? Despite all the things I said about the competitiveness of Joe Burrow, I don't see him requesting a trade as long as Ja'Marr Chase is still here. But look, Joe Burrow's a quarterback. Ja'Marr Chase is a wide receiver. Joe Burrow is going to have a longer career, you would think, barring injuries, than Ja'Marr Chase. So could there be a period where he says, enough is enough, I need to move on? I think it's certainly that something you have to be concerned of and wary about if you are the Cincinnati Bengals or a Bengals fan. So I don't think those comments from Cowherd were outrageous whatsoever. We'll continue here in a moment, but do want to give a shout-out to our friends over at Fanatics. Let you guys know that Bengals Sideline hats are out and available now. Really encourage you guys to get over to Fanatics and check some of these out. I've got a few of these myself. Love rocking them. Obviously, it is the off-season, but that does not mean you can't get some Cincinnati Bengals swag, courtesy of our friends over at Fanatics. By the way, that link will be in the comment section and the description of today's video, so hit that link. Check out those Bengals Sideline hats. All right, more here from a national perspective. Let's talk about what Albert Breer had to say about the Cincinnati Bengals. I think this is more of kind of an optimistic approach compared to what we were just talking about with Colin Cowherd. This is what Breer said. The underlying thing here, Burrow's priority is chasing championships. As long as the Bengals show they'll provide the resources to put him in that position consistently, everything will be fine. So they should do that rather than find out what happens if they do not. Now, again, it kind of comes back to what we were talking about in terms of this being the most pivotal offseason in Cincinnati Bengals franchise history, right? And there's several guys that, of course, outline that list. T. Higgins, of course, and Trey Hendrickson, of course, as well. But there's just so much uncertainty around this whole situation, which I think is what makes it so fascinating, not only from a local perspective, right, but also a national perspective. And you've got everybody really in the national media talking about the Cincinnati Bengals, because you are in a situation where every other team, if they were in this spot, they would say, oh, yeah, we're just going to pay up and, get our guys our money, keep our star quarterback happy, keep the guys in town, and keep going. Well, that's not how the Bengals operate. They have a track record of messing stuff up like this every single time. In fact, if they were able to pull this off and execute it correctly, it would be borderline a Christmas miracle, right? Because this isn't something this organization does. Another opportunity for you guys to get involved with our show here at Bengals Breakdown. Will either T. Higgins or Trey Hendrickson be back next season? Let me know in the comment section. Again, either one of them. I don't know what Joe Burrow's response is going to be, if it's just one that comes back, if that is going to be all right with him, or if he's going to be incredibly disappointed. But I think there's a good chance at least one of them come back. Let me know what you think in the comments of today's video. And I do want to say this in regards to the Cincinnati Bengals. If they mess this up, right? If they mess this up, and then that would just be them starting a bad relationship with Joe Burrow. If they're not able to get T. Higgins or Trey Hendrickson, throw Mike Gesicki in there as well. If they mess this up, they will never be good. As long as this ownership and this front office is in place, they will never be good. And that's just kind of the reality of the situation. They're in a spot right now where they have Joe Burrow, one of the best, in my opinion, the best quarterback in the National Football League. If you can't cater to him and make things work with him, you're never going to be good, right? It's not like you have, it's somebody that's a franchise quarterback, but, doesn't really move the needle for you. Like, it's not like you got Jared Goff playing quarterback. No disrespect to him. He's definitely one of the top 15 quarterbacks in the National Football League. But, he's not a superstar quarterback. He doesn't move the needle. I can promise you, if Jared Goff was the quarterback of the Cincinnati Bengals, T. Higgins would not be coming back and Trey Hendrickson would not be coming back. They would not be pivoting off the things they had done previously as an organization. But there is hope that they could potentially change their ways and fix the way they operate because they have a star in their hands right here with Joe Burrow at that quarterback spot. It's going to be a fascinating offseason. I really don't know what to expect, right? Because you're sitting there and you're thinking, well, they got to be crazy if they mess this up, right? But then again, their track record is, they continually mess this up. Obviously, it's different this time around because you got a guy like Joe Burrow, but we will see. This offseason is going to be chaotic. It's going to be crazy, and it's certainly going to be something that we're going to have documented here at Bengals Breakdown. So don't miss out. Hit that sub button. Also, give me a follow over on Twitter at StoneShields_. All of our Bengals breakdown content will be posted to my Twitter page. You also see all of our short form content there as well. Trying to get to 600 followers, or 550, I believe, by the end of the month of February. So help me out. Give me a follow over on Twitter at StoneShields_.